So what is Warhammer 40,000? In my Warhammer 40,000 Beginners series, I'll teach you the very basics of how to play 40k. So this video is going to go over what Warhammer 40,000 is, what you need to play it, and how the game is broken down. We'll go into more detail in following videos. This is a real basic. So essentially, Warhammer 40,000 is a tabletop game played with miniatures. Okay, you get these, you build them up, you glue them, and you paint them along with their units. And then once you have enough to make an entire army, you can play the game with one or more players. So apart from your miniatures that you build up and paint, painting is not essential. It does look much better, makes the game more immersive, and certain tournaments, etc., have certain criteria. You have to have so many parts of the unit painted, etc. Not all of them, but yeah, ideally have your army painted, but it's not essential. So along with your army, your miniatures that you've got, you need somewhere to play. So you can have a table, you can play on the floor, any space you've got, and you'll need some terrain. You can buy purpose made terrain, okay, like this, or you can just use seal boxes and whatever you've got. But it is essential that you have some terrain for cover. So along with the miniatures, the space to play, you will also need objective markers. So this is an objective marker. They come in two forms. So this is an objective marker, and this is also an objective marker that shows you the radius around it. We'll get into that in another video. Okay, you can get these ones on eBay. This one came from Battleground Gaming UK, my local hobby store. So apart from that, you'll need some six-sided dice. They come in lots of varieties, so you can get any style you like. You'll also need a tape measure to measure distances for shooting, movement, charges, etc. You can also get some of these little handy measuring tools. I've got 2 inches, 3 inches, 1 inch on. Okay, that's from the Kill Team box set. You can use laser pointers to determine line of sight, because Warhammer 40,000 is based on line of sight, true line of sight. Okay, that means if your model can see another model, it can shoot it, it can interact with it, depending on the phase and the situation. Okay, so apart from all that, you'll also need your rules. So you'll probably need a Warhammer 40,000 rulebook. You can purchase these in local hobby stores. You can get them from Games Workshop directly. You can find rules online. I think the rules are free on their app, the Warhammer 40,000 app. You also need rules. You can get them in the data cards like this. Again, you can find these for the indexes online on Warhammer Community, or you can go into your local hobby store and pick these up if the codex has been released. You can also find them online as well. You will also potentially need your codex again for any of the rules, like your army rule, your detachment rule, which I'll go into later on. You will also need your mission deck. Okay, so this is the Pro Next one. This is the second edition. This is the second edition of the mission cards for 10th edition Warhammer, and what they are, you have one deck which contains 2 decks of secondary missions. You have a little leaflet which explains more about competitive play. You have primary missions. You have deployments, different deployment zones, how you set up and the terrain, and you also have mission rules. Okay, so again, you can get these, although they are hard to get at the moment. You can get these from your local hobby store. You can get them directly from Games Workshop. There are some apps that give you these missions where you can generate them. So I like to have the cards because I like to have the tactile tactile side of just holding the cards. It's a tactile game, you know. You've got your figures, you've got your tables, you've got your dice. So I like to have the physical cards as well. So that is pretty much all the equipment you will need to get started. I know it seems quite daunting, but you can get most of this stuff online. And also, to get started quickly, if you're just going to have a little quick game with your friend, just see if you like it, you don't need all of this stuff. If you can get a bit of it, then you can still jump in and start to learn to play. Also, you can go down to your local store. They might have miniatures you can borrow, equipment you can borrow, and also definitely Games Workshop as well. So if you're interested, you go down to Games Workshop, and I know they do like beginner games where they've got all the stuff, and they'll have a quick little game with you, or there'll be people there that will introduce you to the game. So once you've got all your equipment set up, you've decided, you've got your army together, you've got it built, you have decided you will play, you've got a space to play, you've got a bit of terrain, doesn't matter what the terrain is. So how does the actual game work? So like I say, you make your two armies. Each unit has a different points cost, and you set your points cost of your game, you know, 500, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, whatever you want to play. And then you build your army again. You can use the Warhammer 40,000 app. You can use pen and paper if you want. You can use other third-party apps. There's loads of ways to do it. So once you've got your army ready, you need to set up the battlefield. So you set up the terrain. It'll show you in your deck, depending on which deployment zone you select. Then you can position your terrain however you like, or you can follow the set ones on the app, so you can find them on Warhammer Community. You'll then pick a primary mission, and you will then pick a mission rule. Okay, and depending on your primary mission, it tells you what your primary objective is. Okay, which usually involves capturing these objectives and having your units on them, and denying the enemy having them. Okay, you also, throughout the game, you'll draw these secondary missions which are at random. Okay, and these will give you secondary objectives which range from taking space on the battlefield to doing certain actions to killing enemy units. Okay, but we'll go into those in a bit more detail in another video. So once you've got all that, you also need to realise that Warhammer 40,000 is based on measurements and dice rolling and true line of sight. So true line of sight is obviously if you can see something, then your model can see it and then it can shoot and interact with it depending on the situation. It is also a dice game, so you compare the stats of your units and you roll a dice, and sometimes you get lucky, sometimes you get unlucky. Even when the odds are very much in your favour, sometimes it just doesn't go your way. So it's a dice game essentially. So as much skill as is involved in it, there's also an element of luck. The better you are as a player, the less reliant you are on the luck and the dice rolls, I'd say. And then finally, once you've done all that, you can start to play. So if I just get this up onto my app here, the battle round is broken down into 5 phases. Okay, so not including the deployment phase. Like I said, you set up them depending on the cards. You have the command phase where you draw your secondary objectives. You can do certain things like command points, which you can use for stratagems, which again I'll get into in the command phase video. You have your movement phase where you can move your units around, your models around. Shooting phase where you can shoot enemy models and try and destroy them, do some damage. Charge phase where your models try and get into close combat with the enemy models. And then finally the fight phase where you fight in close combat and try to do some damage to your enemy. So that is a very, very brief overview of what Warhammer 40,000 is. So if any of this interests you, then I'd suggest either getting down to your local store, like I say, getting to a local Games Workshop store, or even just having a look online. Warhammer community, there's loads of, or even just on YouTube, just watch some games on YouTube, see what you think. But it's a great hobby. I'd recommend getting involved. If you want to find out more, there's going to be more of these videos released, which will go into more detail, still basics, of each phase to help new players learn how to play. So hopefully you will join me for those and you'll get a better understanding of how to play Warhammer 40,000.